the problem with a video like this is that it's kind of like preaching to the choir, in that if you're listening to this video, then you're probably not, you don't have this problem necessarily, right? So it's kind of like you have to identify problems in other people in order to identify problems in yourself, right? So one of the things that it's very obvious, and you probably have experienced this, that there's two key factors in communicating with other people, is that people don't listen and they don't think. And the reason why they don't listen is because they can't process the information, because they can't think, right? It's not that they can't think necessarily, but they don't think. They're not practiced in thinking. They're practiced in reacting. And that's where you see this amplified online, where people are reacting to stuff, right? But reactions are animalistic. Thinking and processing and responding is what, a person does, right? An animal responds with a reaction. So I try to focus on having autonomy as a human being and not a reactionary person. So I have to think, right? So you have to think and process information and not just simply react. And so if you think about things, then you have to have some, like if you're talking to somebody and they say something to you, you have to listen to what they say in order to think about it, right? So if you're not able to think about something, then you're just basically not really going to listen, because you have no tools to process the information. It's like eating food without a stomach. You have no ability to ingest it, right? So you can basically just react instinctually to not just words, not words really, some words, but also, like body language and facial expressions and the moment and other people's responses, that kind of thing. It becomes very non-cerebral communication. And to some degree, sometimes if you listen to some people's conversations that are, two people that can't listen and they can't think, it's like two TVs talking, right? One is saying one thing, the other person's saying another, but yet they're acting like they're having a conversation, but neither one of them neither one of them's absorbing any of the other person's information and processing it and then, saying something intelligent with it, right? It's very interesting. And so, and it's really just a practice. Everybody has the ability to think and to listen and all that stuff. It's just they're not in practice. They don't really, apparently have never been taught to think, don't value thinking, and would rather just conform and be a parrot to whatever the society, the flow of society is. And I think that part of it is, I don't know. I think part of it is, people's upbringings, being in public school and different environments where they are just constantly reacting, and especially in a fast-paced environment, like in a real dense city where there's lots of people and there's lots of things. There's very little time for thought, right? And then social media and the internet allows you to have nonstop input, right? Instead of you thinking for yourself, you constantly have things blaring in your direction, whether it be podcasts or music or TV shows, entertainment, all this stuff that's basically, giving your brain a railroad track to follow. And so it's very easy to just stay on that railroad track and never deviate, never do things for yourself, processing things for yourself, that kind of thing. So you have to really work hard. That's what I talk about a lot about, guarding your autonomy, guarding it, because it's so easy. It's not like that you can just kind of go on with life without actively guarding your autonomy, because there's so many different things that are trying to subvert and take over your autonomy. So actively resisting things that are presented to you, right? Like in the movie Princess Bride, where Vicini, he said, only a fool would reach for what they're given, right? So it's kind of like that, where, there's all these things that are presented to you, but you don't want to take and consume and ingest everything that's presented to you. You don't even want to be exposed to everything that's presented to you. So you have to, be active in guarding your own autonomy and your own thoughts and your own focus, especially your focus, because your focus is guided by your thoughts, or the other way around, your thoughts are guided by your focus, right? So very important, all these different issues. But having the ability to think and process information is going to allow you to then listen to other people and understand what they're saying, and then be a little bit more empathetic. There's a lot of people that are just like borderline sociopathic because they lack empathy so much, and I think that's partially because of the situation with their thinking, but also the railroad track that they're on with the internet and constant stimulation and all that stuff. There's a lot of issues, you really have to think it through. You have to really understand what's happening and make a significant effort to make sure you stay, on the straight and narrow path. There's a straight and narrow path. That means everything else is off path, right? And then the narrow path means it's very hard to stay on that little path because it's so small, So yeah, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to autonomy and the times that we're living in. It's different problems, but it's just things that are with technology is like a double-edged sword, right? It is used for good, and it's also used for not good, right? So if you're doing things that are not good, then you can easily do things that are good. It's a choice. It's a focus. It's attention. It's a direction. Are you going up or are you going down? These are the things that need to be looked at and examined. And if you know somebody, let's say there's somebody you care about, teach them how to think. Teach them how to process information. Also, since you can recognize in other people, probably a good idea to recognize in yourself. Everybody needs to learn how to think better. Even if you think you know how to think, you probably can do a better job, right? Process the different information, like look at the opposing views and look at the arguments, and without dismissing them out of hand. Remove emotions and look at perception. Look at your perception, look at other people's perception, and examine them and not react to them. Process the information. Understand it, and that's the easiest one, right? That's the one that trips most people up, is when they are presented with a point of view that's different from themselves, and they get emotionally reactive, right? And then they shut down their thinking process, and then it's an emotional reaction, right? So yeah, just practice that, and like basic information, like biology, right? Like biology information about plant and animal cells. Well, when you're learning that information, there's no emotional reaction necessarily. You're not like, oh, I disagree with that or whatever. You're just like, whoa, this is fascinating, and it's very complex, and it's hard to grasp sometimes. It's very, there's a lot of, it's just a crazy amount of information that's presented to you, like say in a biology class or whatever. But it's not emotionally reactive. The emotionally reactive stuff is the part, as soon as the emotions get triggered, if you're not prepared for it, if you're not practiced in it, then you're going to shut down your higher part of your brain, the part that actually processes information, and it's going to be more of a reactionary, emotional reaction, not a there's no emotional response, it's an emotional reaction, right? And then you're now at that point going forward, it's going to be hard to get back on the thinking part.